Hi, Paul. I want to talk to you about changes. You know, you've been in this business here for 25 years and seen more change requests than there are Chinese in China. With today's tool like Umbraco, Magento, WordPress, or whatever they all called, it's very easy to make changes. It's very fast. In Umbraco, you can add a new field and have it on your front page in almost no time. And that make it very susceptible for impulsive changes. You get an impulsive idea of making a change, which then leads to another change, and then that's when it starts to go downhill. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that and why it's a problem and what people should do to avoid getting into trouble.
Yes. Well, as you mentioned, it's easy to make a change. So people tend to forget about thinking it through.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you get a good idea of how to improve a system. Let's say it's still under development, and you want to make a change to make it better than you initially planned.
Yeah.
The problem is that as you go along with this change, you get better ideas.
Yeah.
And
so you make changes to changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get changes to your change request, and sometimes it just goes on and on.
Yeah. And that takes time.
Yes.
And it requires a lot of meetings, right? Because
yes.
The client calls up and says, "Hey, Paul, we need to add this field, or we need to break down that field into two fields," and then you start to speak to the developer who does it, and then the client comes back and says, "No, it has to be three fields," and the meetings takes time, cost money. Developer it takes time, right?
Yes.
And it takes time to test it.
Yes. Yeah. Let's say you have as just a basic example of an address form, a contact form, and let's say you just initially had one big address field in the form.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a standard practice today, but just as a basic example.
Yeah.
And then you realize that it's better if you break them up into smaller fields, like 3 to 4 fields, so you can have separate entries for street, for example, house number or apartment number.
Yeah.
And while you can do that easily in the back end of Umbraco, for example, as a CMS, and if you have the technical know-how, you can add it to the form, to the UI yourself. But still, these are separate fields that you have to consider.
Yeah.
And then as you add them, you realize that you probably should have some sort of validation on the entry. Like if you want to limit the street number to numeric input only.
Yeah.
And you don't want any alphabets or characters in the entry. And then you add that.
Yeah.
So the next thing you might think about is limiting the length of a street number, street name, for example. So it is already a deviation from your original change request.
And each deviation has to be communicated.
Yes.
And it takes time. And communication often gives problems because people misunderstand.
Yes. It's a process. Like the customer talks to the project manager communicates this with the developer, developer does this.
Has to communicate back to the customer that has been done, right?
And to the tester.
Tester.
If it needs to be tested. And then
which it does.
Yes.
Always.
And it has to be deployed.
Yeah.
So it's not just a simple thing of changing one thing, but it affects the whole process.
Plus, if you do, let's say you have automated testing, where it is today when you make software, for those who don't know this, but today when you make software, you can automate a part of the testing process. That allows you to save time and money on testing, and it allows you to make many more deployment that you would otherwise do, because let's say you have a contact form, very simple on the website, you have a contact form with 10 fields. You can set it up so that whenever the website is changed, the developer click a button, it will automatically be deployed to your host. After it's been deployed, there is what's called an automated testing process that starts and checks that the contact form can be filled out and the data can be submitted. First of all, you don't have to have a person doing it. Secondly, when it's set up correctly, it's not forgotten. In other words, you deploy something at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's automatic tested, and if there is an error, the developer will be informed right away and can then fix the issue. So that's sort of the new black. I mean, that's the way it's gonna go.
Yes.
Things has to be automated, and when you make a change, then that script that does the automated testing has to be updated. But if you make a change and then another change and another change, then you have to remember to update these test scripts, and that takes time, costs money, so it should be avoided.
Yes. It's better to have things planned through at the start.
Exactly. Plan things as much as possible. I understand agile development. You sit down, you plan what to do the next 1 or 2 weeks. It's all cool, it's all fine, right? But when you do something, let's say you're making in the sprint, you do agile development. In that sprint, you're going to make a contact formula. Then sit down and really spend the time to think through what data do I want to capture, so that when the programmer begins programming, you don't change it, and therefore avoid all this forcing back.
Yes.
Many times on extreme project, communication can be 50-60% of the entire project cost because of all this forcing back. So think things through before you begin, and avoid making too many changes.
Yes.
It's in everyone's interest. You save money, it goes faster, you get faster to market, the people working for you are not getting confused, and everybody happy.
Yeah, as the adage goes, planning is a battle.